you wrote a piece in MIT Tech Review saying that AI can't be an artist. Creativity is and always will be a human endeavor. You mentioned Bert and criticism of symbolic AI. Can you explain your view of criticizing the capacity for artistry and creativity in our robot friends?
Yeah, I can try. So to make the argument, you have to have in mind what counts as art, what counts as a creative, artistic act.
Mm-hmm.
I take it that just doing something new isn't sufficient. I mean, we say that good art is original, but not everything that's never been done before is good art.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be more than just doing something new. It has to be somehow doing something new in a way that speaks to the audience or speaks to some portion of the audience at least. It has to be doing something new in such a way that some people who see or interact with it can see themselves anew in it. So I think that art is inherently a creative act. A kind of communicative act.
Mm-hmm.
That it involves a relation with other people. So think about the conditions for that working. I talk in that article, I can't remember, something about new music. I think I don't talk about Stravinsky, but let's say Stravinsky.
Mm-hmm.
Stravinsky, performs the Rite of Spring and there's riots. It is new and people hate it. People can't, it sounds like a cacophony. It sounds awful. It's written according to principles that are not like the principles of music composition that people are familiar with. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, it's a failed communicative act. Mm-hmm. But as Nietzsche says about his own stuff, I mean, we now can recognize that it wasn't a failed communicative act. It just hadn't reached its time yet.
Yes.
Right? And now that way of composing music is like, it's in Disney movies. It's so part of our musical palette that we don't have that response. It changed us. It changed the way we understand what counts as good music. Mm-hmm. So that's a deep communicative act. It didn't perform its communication in that opening moment, but it did ultimately establish a new understanding for all of us of what counts as good art. And that's the kind of deep communication that I think good art can do. It can change our understanding of ourselves and of what a good manifestation of something of ourselves in a certain domain is.
Mm-hmm. And you use the term socially embedded, that art is fundamentally socially embedded.
Yeah.
And I really like that term because I see like my love for artificial intelligence and the kind of system that we can bring to the world that could make for an interesting and more lively world, and one that enriches human beings, is one where the AI systems are deeply socially embedded.
Good. Yeah.
So that actually is in contrast to the way artificial intelligence have been talked about throughout its history, and certainly now, both on the robotic side and the AI side. It's especially on the tech sector, where the businesses around AI, they kind of want to create systems that are like servants to humans, and then humans do all the beautiful human messiness of where art would be part. I think that there is no reason why you can't integrate AI systems in the way you integrate new humans to the picture. There are just the full diversity and the flaws, all of that adds to the thing. Like, some people might say that AlphaZero is this system from DeepMind that was able to achieve, solve the game, beat the best people in the world at the game of Go with no supervision from humans. But more interestingly to me, on the side of creativity, it was able to surprise a lot of grandmasters with the kind of moves they came up with. Now, to me, that's not the creativity, the magic that's socially embedded that we're talking about.
Right.
That is merely revealing the limitations of humans to discover. It's like to solve a particular aspect of a math problem. I think creativity is not just even socially embedded. It's the way you're saying is part of the communicative act. It's the interactive. It's the dance with the culture.
Yeah.
And so it has to be like, for Alpha Zero to be creative, truly creative, it would have to be integrated in a way where it has a Twitter account and it becomes aware of the impact it has on the other grandmasters with the moves that's coming up. Mm-hmm. And like, one of the fascinating things about Alpha Zero, which I just love so much, is I don't know if you're familiar with chess.
I am, yeah.
The game, okay. So it does certain things that most chess players, even at the highest level, don't do, which is it sacrifices pieces. It gives pieces away and then waits like 10 moves before it pays you back. So it does, to me, that's beautiful. That's art. If only Alpha Zero understood the artistry of that, which is I'm going to mess with you psychologically because I'm going to do two things. One, make you feel overconfident that you're doing well, but actually also once you realize you are playing Alpha Zero that is much better than you, you're going to feel really nervous about what's on the way. Well, like, this is the calm before the storm. And that creates a beautiful psychological masterpiece of this chess game. If only Alpha Zero was then messing with you additionally to that, like, and was cognizant of this doing that, then it becomes art. And then it's integrated into society in that way. And I believe it doesn't have to actually have an understanding of the world in the way that humans have. It can have a different one. It can be like a child is clueless about so many aspects of the world, and it's okay. And that's part of the magic of it. Just being flawed, being lacking understanding in all interesting kinds of ways, but interacting. And so to me, it's possible to create art for AI, but exactly as you're saying, in a deeply socially embedded way.
Good. Well, I think we agree, but let me just highlight the thing that makes me think that we agree.
Yeah.
Which is that I think for people, for a community to allow themselves to recognize in a certain kind of creative act, I'm thinking of Stravinsky here, but we could think of a chess thing, to recognize in a certain kind of creative act a new and admirable, worthy way of thinking about what's significant in the situation, you have to believe that it wasn't random. You have to believe that Stravinsky wrote that way because he was receptive to what needed to be said now. And so you said, if only Alpha Zero could do all this by virtue of recognizing that this was the thing that needed to be done, then it would be socially embedded in the right way. And I think I agree with that. First of all, it's possible to do in a constrained domain, a game-playing domain, Go or chess. Go is more complicated than chess, but either one of them, because there really are only a finite range of possibilities. If you make the game end at a certain point, it's a combinatorial problem in the end. Now, obviously, Alpha Zero doesn't solve the problem in a combinatorial way. That would be sort of take too much energy. You couldn't do it. It's it sort of explodes the problem. So it does it in this other way that's interesting, this pattern recognition way, roughly. And in that context, it may well be that it can see, having had lots and lots of experience in the training stuff against itself or against another version of itself, it can see that the sacrifice here is going to pay dividends down the road. See, I put that in quotation marks. That's to say, it's got, a high weight to this move here
Mm-hmm.
as a result of experience in the past where that move down the line led to this improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So in that finite context, I think, the game players can trust it, and they talk that way. That it's got a kind of authority.
Mm-hmm.
They say, I've read some people who said about AlphaZero when it played Go, it's like it's playing from the future. It's making these moves that are just outlandish. And there's a kind of brilliance to them that we can't really understand. We'll be catching up to it forever.
Mm-hmm.
I think in that context, like, it's mapped the domain, and the domain is mappable because it's a combinatorial problem, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
But in something like music or art of a non-finite form, it feels to me like it's a little harder for me to understand what the analog of our trusting that Stravinsky has recognized something about us
Mm-hmm.
that demands that he write this way. That doesn't seem like a finite thing in quite the same way. Now we could ask the system, why did you do it? We could ask Stravinsky, why did you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it will have answers. But then it's involved in a kind of communicative act.
Mm-hmm.
And I think lots of times artists will often say, look, I can't communicate better than what I've done in the piece of work. That is the statement.
Yeah. So we humans aren't able to answer the why either.
Yeah.
But I do think the question here is, well, first of all, language is finite, certainly when expressed through a tweet. So it is also a combinatorial problem.
Yeah.
The question is how much more difficult it is than chess. And I think all the same ways that we see the solutions to chess is deeply surprising when it was first addressed with IBM Deep Blue, and then with AlphaGo and AlphaGo Zero, AlphaZero. I think in that same way, language can be addressed and communication can be addressed. I don't see, having done this podcast, many reasons why everything I'm doing, especially as a digital being on the internet, can't be done by an AI system eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're being very human-centric in thinking we're special. I think one of the hardest things is the physical space. Actually operating like touch and the magic of body language and the music of all of that, because it's so deeply integrated through the long evolutionary process of what it's like to be on Earth. What is fundamentally different, and AI can catch up on, is the way we apply our evolutionary history on the way we act on the internet, on the way we act online. And as more and more of the world becomes digital, you're now operating in a space where AI is behind much less so. Like, we're both starting at zero.